Celtic are through to the last 16 of the Scottish Cup. We beat Auchinleck Talbot 2-0, made relatively hard work of it, but we are through. It's not a match that I plan on thinking too much about, probably about an hour from now, but between now and then we are going to discuss it a little bit and whatever else is going on. The good news is that Euan is back. Euan, hello.
I would like to actually formally apologise because the last time I was on your channel, I was expressing all kinds of optimism about the Wilfred Nancy era at Celtic, and if that shows anything, it's that you shouldn't take idiots like me seriously at all. But I'm excited to talk about this game in a way, in a vague way.
I was going to say you're generally quite a positive guy. I would say that you take enjoyment from most things, but did you take much enjoyment from watching that game? It was a bit of a slog.
I kind of dreaded this game since it got drawn, because like when a massive club like Celtic plays, a junior team, there's so little to kind of actually like win in any sort of kind of. Obviously you want to get through to the next round of the cup and you win the game, but like it's not really a massive victory in any sort of wider sense, and there's so much embarrassment and potential for headlines if it goes wrong. So. You kind of worry about these games. You kind of worry about, Auchinleck Talbot are a team that are 2 tiers above my local junior team, and you'd have hoped it would have been the sort of perfunctory kind of, get through it and forget about it kind of performance, and it was. So, we got there.
Yeah, we did the job. The result I don't think was ever in doubt. We were like totally dominant. Like I feel like the entire match was basically just Stephen Welsh with the ball inside the Talbot half trying to dictate the play, because we had them totally penned in for the whole of that match. I think I just won't be a major shock to people. I just wanted to see a bit more from the team. I wanted to see a bit more creativity, more chances created, more goals. I wanted to come away from the game and for us to be like having discussions about various players potentially working their way into Martin O'Neill's starting 11, like Balikwisha and Bernardo and Sinizalo. There's been a lot of chat about Sinizalo recently, given, Schmeichel has clearly struggled. And I think I came away from it just kind of feeling maybe that these guys that we talk up quite a lot because they're not playing are probably not playing for a reason. And as much as there's been, real calls for so many of the kind of general starters over the past year or so, certainly this season, to not be starting, you maybe see why they are always starting, because the guys we've got on the fringes just really aren't up to it. I know that we should put a few things in that it was, as you say, kind of on a hiding to nothing. If we win 5, 6, 7-0, that's what Celtic are expected to do. If we win 2-0, people are going to probably be pretty critical of that. Because we should be winning by more goals than that against a team like Auchinleck Talbot, who I thought, by the way, were really good and really well organised and didn't hand anything to us, made it difficult for us. The pitch is a factor as well. I think the 10 changes that Martin O'Neill makes is a factor as well. So there are various kind of excuses or whatever you can put in there, but yeah, I just thought, Balikwisha, I was expecting a wee bit more there. Bernardo, I just thought didn't really shine. As I say, Sinizalo looked just a bit nervy as well. And they weren't the only ones, there was other guys as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it sounds a little bit like a pat on the head, but I would say you have to give a lot of credit to Auchinleck Talbot, because I've watched a fair bit of junior football the last few seasons. Actually, in the latest episode of Nutmeg Magazine, I've written about Maryhill FC, so go out and buy that. But no, normally after about an hour, 70 minutes, you see in junior football like the levels of fitness, because these are guys who, they have jobs and they train maybe maximum twice a week. And so you do see this massive drop off. But actually, I thought Talbot were really impressive in the way that they kept their shape, they kept their intensity. It was actually from minute 1 to minute 90 plus stoppage time. I thought it was actually quite difficult for Celtic to create clear cut chances. And against a junior team who weren't playing in their home ground, I think you have to give credit to them first and foremost. But secondly, it's a strange one, because there are two ways of looking at this. The first one being that games like this, the squad players get a few reps in, they get some minutes in the legs, no major injuries. That's just amazing, because it kind of put me in mind of that Alloa game in 2022, was it?
Gucci. Yeah.
Hidiguchi gets that injury that completely derails his Celtic career. And with the squad being as thin as it is, the last thing you want is some injuries. And I think maybe we had this idea that Talbot would be really, really physical, and they were to an extent, but like not in terms of, there was nothing toward really. So managed to kind of navigate that. But yeah, as you say, it's kind of like it's hard to know what to expect because 10 changes, a lot of players who hadn't played with each other before, that they hadn't been in the same team. So obviously you can't really expect fluidity in that scenario, but also you do look at the level of the team we're playing against. You look at how expensive a lot of these guys are. You talk about Garlic Wischel was 5.5 million, was it? And you do think, both objectively, there's reasons for it to be an absolute walkover, and there's also reasons for it not to be. So it's one of those strange kind of games where it's difficult to know how to feel afterwards. And yeah, you mentioned Balikwisha. I thought it was really interesting to read Martin O'Neill set up with him in a sort of number 10 kind of free role. So you saw him drifting from sort of more to kind of the left. And I actually thought it kind of suited him very, very early on of any sort of, there was that chance that he missed. Really, really should have worked the goalkeeper. And from there, his confidence just goes. And I think you can see like that. You can see across the team how big confidence is and how little is there is in reserve at the moment. That was kind of my main sort of takeaway from his performance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you mentioned Alloa, and it got me thinking of, there's been plenty of these away early rounds of the Scottish Cup matches that have, to be honest, quite a lot of the time not been particularly pretty, because there are difficulties there for the team. Now, I take the point, someone like Alloa is clearly, a level or two up from Auchinleck Talbot, but also, it's similar in terms of the opposition, just making it really stuffy, being hard to break down, even when they're behind, not necessarily coming out. Although I did think it was almost scary the way Auchinleck Talbot were chasing the equalising, kind of pressing us a bit as the second half went on. But yeah, there was a number. East Kilbride I thought there was a lot of similarities with East Kilbride about 10 years ago, because I think that was 2-0 as well, and that just wasn't particularly pretty. But yeah, I think, we won. We rested a number of players, and we're now going into a big week. Johnny Kenny got his goal. I think first goal in a wee while. Someone said November maybe was Johnny Kenny's last goal. So hopefully he can kick on. Now again, I didn't think his performance was particularly great, but he got his goal. Actually took one really well in the second half as well. That was offside, which also had a penalty for the challenge on James Forrest. That I don't know why it wasn't a penalty. So again, if you get a penalty there and score 3-0, maybe people feel slightly differently about it. But I've kind of, Tenecti's goal was really good. Kind of at risk of us just going on and on here about a game that everyone's probably moved on from. So I'm happy to do about 9 or 10 minutes of chat about the game, and then we can just turn on transfers. Give us your final thoughts. Was there any other players, anything else you made of the game?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. I was terrified by the fact that Cal McGregor played 88 minutes of that game. I'm the last person in the world I'm never ever going to question Martin O'Neill. I'm older than I look, and he's one of my absolute heroes, Martin O'Neill. So I will never question him about player selection. He's forgotten more than I will ever know, right? But 88 minutes of that game is a concern, because if he gets injured, you don't want to think about it. And I know he'd been really, really patchy this season, but you don't want him missing, and you don't want to certainly risking him for 88 minutes against Auchinleck Talbot was a bit. I thought, Johnny Kenny was unlucky not to get more. I think that offside was questionable. I think he maybe telepathically thought about being offside, and VAR picked that up on the line somehow. But yeah, he really could have. He should have had a second from a corner, which would have been consecutive goals from corners, which would be its own video, I'm sure, Hamish. But Tenecti, really, really well taken goal. Hopefully that helps him kick on and realise that he can cut inside and he can take opportunities from way out, because we've seen him come close a number of times. And I thought it was interesting. As soon as he scored, he went over to give Mark Fozzie Fotheringham, a hug, which I thought was a kind of nice little display of unity. So yeah, those are kind of the main things. It was a pretty sedate kind of affair, and East Kilbride's a really good example of. It's a zero-sum game in a lot of ways, because, again, Celtic are expected to win. They're going to have their performance scrutinised, but at the same time, it's really just about it's just about getting to it.
Just in terms of Martin O'Neill comments after the game, you get all of these on the Celtic way. I always like to give them a shout out because they write it all out. Interesting press conference, actually. It's always hard when the quotes are just written out and you've not actually heard them or seen them spoken.
Do an impression.
To work out exactly, I was going to, yeah. I think I've done the Aussie one a number of years ago. People will remember that. So we're not going back down that road. But he says, we weren't fantastic. We never seemed to be comfortable enough with a lot of possession. We weren't able to break the team down often enough. When we did create some chances, we missed them. But obviously delighted with the win, and it's the start of a big week for us. He spoke about making the 10 changes, a couple of reasons he wanted to change the side, because there was a couple of players who hadn't played really under him, and he'd like to see them. And also he's saying that that he wasn't massively surprised maybe that some of them struggled, just given that they haven't played a lot of football and they can be a little bit nervous as well, he was saying. He was asked about Balikwisha. He said he did all right. He brought up Paulo Bernardo as well, who hadn't started the game under Martin O'Neill up until Rugby Park. He praised Auchinleck Talbot, and then they moved on to transfers. And I think reading the quotes, I've not actually been able to hear Martin O'Neill, but kind of using a bit of wit and to maybe move himself away from some of the difficult transfer questions, which is the way Martin O'Neill kind of tends to deal with things, certainly recently. As an example of that, he was asked, are you expecting anyone in before Hearts at the weekend? And he did say, we are very hopeful that we'll get some people in. And then the quote goes, young man, nice to see you. Gosh, I wish I'd get the old gang back. The lads who used to argue with me all the time. I want them back. Please get them back. So he kind of deviated from the answer, and then I think kind of avoided it for the rest of the place. He was asked actually about whether they're looking at the Scottish market, and he says, I was asked this last week. I think absolutely there are players here. There's no doubt about that, because I've been linked to a couple of players, Bowie and Masmanisi from Motherwell as well. It is a big week though, Euan. We've got Bologna and Hearts coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, on transfers, it's Martin O'Neill is. I have to, again, a total sycophant for Martin O'Neill, unapologetically, but you have to give him so much credit because he's come in again for the second time at a time when he's got to be the kind of acceptable face of the club hierarchy. And again, like if you kind of leave the actual preparation for matches and training, all the kind of main stuff aside, he's also kind of taken on this role of being a spokesperson when. Again, he's a 72-year-old man who could be just having his coffee in Chelsea as he was doing beforehand. So it's a massive, massive role he's taken on, and I can't imagine how tired and frustrated he must be a lot of time. But in terms of the Scottish market, I've actually written an article for the Celtic Way about this, about like how there is value, but there's also value in solid international scouting, kind of repeating some of the tricks that we've done before. Yeah, I think there's a balance to be struck. It's great when you can sort of just, pick up and drop players that are ready and are tested in league. So, but yeah, to your point about Bologna, because, we'll tackle a game at a time. I honestly don't know how that's going to, but I certainly don't see Martin O'Neill as a kind of manager who's going to ignore how big an opportunity that is, because it would be absolutely incredible if he was the first person to lead us through a European knockout tie, which again isn't impossible. But if he was the man to do it 22 years after he did it before, it would just be kind of, it would be a really, really sad indictment of the club, but also it would be kind of a nice moment for him. So, and it would definitely cement his place in kind of the sort of European part of his legacy at Celtic. And then you come to the Hearts game, which is enormous. And I don't know what the latest is about Lovren Shanklin, but I know they're battling a couple of injuries and suspensions that could help us. But yeah, they're a team you don't underestimate at this point. We have absolutely no room to be anything less than completely on for that game. So how are you feeling about today? Are you nervous, or do you feel like we're getting back to where we need to be?
It's a tough one, because I kind of feel like it's a typical game at Tynecastle on Sunday that maybe Martin O'Neill will get the team going for, and the team will be really kind of motivated for it. And as you say, Hearts are missing a couple of players. But then there's the other part of me that just thinks we just aren't very good at the moment, and we don't. we don't have, very good players in a lot of positions, and you've got the added complication of Bologna on Thursday night. And I agree with you. I think Martin O'Neill's going to obviously go all out to try and get a result there, because we potentially need a draw to have the chance to get to 10 points for our final game against Utrecht. I think we're in 6 at the moment, so that's a big game as well. But like the game on Sunday is just enormous compared to Bologna. Like, I would settle right now for a defeat in Italy, a big defeat in Italy, if it means that we win at Tynecastle, because that's just a massive game. But yeah, I don't have any real kind of faith in this team. Really, I've got faith in Martin O'Neill to work some sort of magic. And I'm aware, obviously, it'll be back to kind of a stronger team. Dyser will be back, and Tierney will be in, and Nygren, who'll probably pop up with a goal, and like we should be a bit stronger. But yeah, it's like it's a kind of tough place to be when you don't really have any faith in Celtic to go and win at Tynecastle. You're almost looking in a weird way if as a draw kind of acceptable. Like I feel we have to go and win the game and really make a big statement in the title race, because you're kind of, I think we're 22 games in, you're going to start running out of games fairly soon, and we are 6 points behind Hearts, so I would really like to win that. But yeah, you don't have much faith at the moment. Just on the Lawrence Shankland stuff, because people might be wondering, they might have missed this. I think the latest was Derek McInnes fearing that Shankland will be out of the game next Sunday. So he was forced off with what looked like a hamstring injury in their cup defeat to Falkirk, and they're also missing Cammy Devlin as well, 6 to 8 weeks. Benny Beningame is suspended from the game next week, so they are without some players, especially the kind of spine of the team. So that would maybe give me a bit more hope. But God, we just need players in. But like realistically, even if Martin O'Neill wants players in ahead of Sunday, they're going to go right in and start at Tynecastle, maybe. But that just seems to me like a bit of a kind of a stab in the dark here, and hoping that we can get something together.
Yeah, I mean, what would be ideal is if we could go back in time and get Rio Hatate to play exactly like he did at Tynecastle the first time when he joined the January window. But it's a tricky one, because like I think even if we did say, I mean, if logic completely out the window here, if we managed to sign a few players for a few quid, there's no guarantee that they would gel quickly enough to play out of these games. And it's the frightening lack of long-term strategy for me. The way that we've had 3 managerial departures if you count Martin O'Neill leaving his interim period expiring. We always seem to be running around with our hair on fire, kind of wondering, like lurching from sort of manager to manager, and hoping that manager sticks and has a big enough presence to essentially run scouting and to be the face of the club, and to win every game. And that sort of cult personality behind a manager is just so outdated, and it just really worries me. And I know Paul Tisdale is a really, really bad example of what a sort of footballing doctor or a quasi director of football kind of role can bring to a club. And obviously we've had other kind of failures in the past. I believe you could sort of call what Mark Lowell was doing and what Nick Hammond was doing kind of similar roles, but it's just so mad that like it's so 90s in the sense that like everything, so much comes down to the manager, and it's just the way that like we've been affected by that is colossal, and it just so much needs to be updated at the club, starting with rules and recruitment.
It's just you just get so frustrated, don't you? Every transfer window just dragging on and on with Celtic doing like no business. I know we signed Araujo, but that was really early on in the window. Like probably at least 2 weeks have passed since then, and there's just been nothing agreed and nothing announced, and it doesn't feel like anything's particularly imminent. Although Martin O'Neill seems to think we could get players in for Sunday, and we badly need players. It's just like, is there an urgency at the club? Do they just not have the expertise and ability to be able to sign players? Anyway, we're not doing a massive transfer deep dive today. We can save that for later in the week. I don't think there was any kind of new reports. I mean, there's rumours and as I say, Maswinizi's been mentioned, and Bowie and Fafana, but there's nothing definitive. I think I saw Kovacevic is heading somewhere else. He going to Ferencvaros potentially. So
Yeah,
we appear to be missing out on a lot of our striker targets. Scottish Cup draw was made after the game. We have a home tie at home to Dundee. So an all-premiership match. That's on the weekend of 7th and 8th of February. So 3 weeks from now, I think. So not too long. In terms of the other ties, Aberdeen Motherwell, I guess, would be a good one. Airdrieonians, St Mirren, Dundee United at home to the Spartans. We've got Dunfermline Athletic, who beat Hibs. They're at home to Kelty Hearts. Elgin City versus Partick Thistle. Rangers against Stranraer or Queen's Park. And Queen's Park at home for Rangers again. That would give them PTSD. And Senhousemuir versus Falkirk, a wee local derby there. Falkirk beat Hearts, as we mentioned. So Hibs and Hearts are out of the cup, which I guess is good news for us. And we have Dundee next at home to get to the last 8.
Sorry, Hamish, did you see that Aberdeen got?
Aberdeen got Motherwell.
That's just fine, thanks.
Second strike for Euan.
Sorry,
will there be a third? Will he be asked back on? I'm just struggling to kind of. I just care so much about the league this season. I'm kind of struggling to feel too much about the Scottish Cup, especially when the games are, we're big favourites for them. But beat Dundee through to the last 8, and then it starts to get interesting, I guess. So give us your final thoughts, Hugh, and then we'll let you go.
Yeah, well, again, I want to apologise for that Motherwell joke there. I think there's enough. I'm a massive sentimentalist. Is one of the many words you could use about me. And I really like the idea of Martin O'Neill leading Celtic to a Scottish Cup final in his last game as manager, just like he did all those years ago. So I think that's. I mean, we should be aiming for trophies. I completely understand what you're saying about the league. The league is a priority. And hopefully we're talking about the Scottish Cup as a sort of cherry on top scenario. But yeah, it'd be great. I mean, if being the operative word here, if we could put a run of results together, and include the Scottish Cup in that, then there's still. Call me, I've got my blinkers on. I'm overly optimistic and all this kind of stuff, but I still think there's a way for the season to end really nicely. It's still within our grasp, but yeah. As I say, the board need to get their finger out with signings. It annoys me greatly that we've missed out on probably the inform. And I know you can talk about the standard league all you want, but we've probably missed out on the inform based on numbers, like striker in our price range in Europe, seemingly with a whimper. That's disappointing. So back Martin O'Neill Celtic, and he will take us where we need to be and where we should be.
Okay, Euan, thanks very much. Lovely to catch up with you. Thanks everyone for watching. I will return tomorrow when hopefully there'll be some transfer stuff to discuss. Chat to you then.